So, Brian, we've kind of hashed out the Brendon Clark, Drew Pyne, situation on a previous podcast. So I don't want to go terribly deep into that, but going into spring, we at least need to touch on the fact that are these guys going to get an opportunity, that kind of thing, and let's assume that they are getting that opportunity. What do they need to do to push Jack Cohn, who we believe is probably going to be the starter going into spring, but it's their responsibility to push and to potentially take it over, right? So what are we looking at from those two guys? And we're lumping them together because they're both the returning guys, and we've talked about them before, so I didn't want to dive too deep, but what do their opportunities look like?
Well, I think for Brendon Clark, the biggest thing is he's got to prove he's healthy.
Yes.
And that's my big fear for him, and my concern for him is if he's limited this spring, he's going to have no chance.
Zero.
No chance, because there's just too much talent, and you just he doesn't have enough. He hasn't proven himself enough in the past 2 years, which I wouldn't necessarily say is his fault. I mean, he didn't get a chance to play this year, and then a couple times he would have got a chance. He was out with injury or COVID-related things. So he's got like 7 career pass attempts. So it's not like he proved himself to a level where like, hey, look, we've seen what he can do on game day, so we're going to give him that opportunity to go play. He's got to be able to get back out there. And I think, look, the thing about Brendon Clark that has going for him is he's probably the best athlete. He's definitely the best athlete of the returners. And he has, I would argue, the best arm strength of any quarterback on the roster, including Tyler Buchner. I mean, he's got a powerful arm. When he's right and his mechanics are right and his decision making is right, he'll throw the best. He'll have the best throws of the spring practices and fall camp. He'll make some gorgeous throws, but he's got to improve his decision making a ton. They need to see from him this spring a big jump in the mental acumen of running the offense.
Yeah,
they also need to see a little bit more poise in the pocket from him. It's just some of the things that I've been, talking to different sources, that he's got to prove that he can be more comfortable playing, at quarterback when there are 11 guys on both sides coming at him, processing that information, getting the ball out quick, and not just like, from what I've been told, like sometimes when he gets in those live situations, it's like automatically he's looking for the rush and looking for a place to run because he's an athlete, that gamer, he's got to be, hey, look, I'm going to take this hit, but I'm reading the defense out and I'm getting the ball out, just showing more poise in the pocket.
I've seen enough of that. I'm good.
Yeah. And so that's the thing with Brendon Clark. Now with Drew Pyne, it's just about, dude, you got to go out there and just shred. I mean, that's the thing is there's nothing about Drew Pyne that's going to stand out size-wise, athletically, there's nothing from a physical tool standpoint he does better than any of the other quarterbacks. I think we could agree he ranks 4th in size. He ranks 4th in athleticism of the 4. He ranks 4th in arm strength. There's none of those physical measurables that you look at and say, he can compete, which means he has to do it mentally and from an execution standpoint better than everybody else.
Right.
And dramatically so. So he has to go out there from day one, show leadership, which I've heard he has, be that great decision maker. Don't be afraid to take those chances. Because if you're Drew Pyne, you have nothing to lose. There's not a person on this planet outside of maybe the Pyne family that thinks, from a Notre Dame fan base standpoint, that thinks Drew's going to go out there and win the starting job. I think he's got it. I know you think he's got a better chance than some people give him credit for. I like Drew Pyne a lot. But the reality is, because he lacks those physical tools, he can't afford to not thrive from an execution standpoint. And the thing that should benefit him, because he is considered the afterthought, Jack Cohn's going to start this year, and then he's going to be the line of succession is going to then go to succession is going to go to Tyler Buchner, right? So what have you got to lose? So take those shots, throw the ball downfield, be aggressive, throw with great timing, take your chances. Because, what are they going to do? Bench you? Right? That's what everybody's thinking is going to happen anyway. So I just want to see Drew play loose, let it all out. And if he's not good enough, he's not good enough. And then I think he can live with, and he'll be able to live with that. Hey, look, I went to Notre Dame. I knew they were going to sign great quarterbacks. They had Tyler Buchner committed before he signed. He knew Tyler Buchner was coming. And he still came because he loves Notre Dame and he's not afraid to compete. Anyone that followed his recruitment, he was committed to Notre Dame for over a year, and he was going to 7-on-7 after 7-on-7, this camp, that camp. Because he wanted to compete. He's not going to back down from this fight, but I want to see him have that, what do I got to lose mentality, and just go ball. and let the chips fall where they may. I think that's his best chance to sort of step in and seize that role and say, hey, look, Jack Cohn may be the starter, but I'm the next in line. Or if Jack Cohn falters, you're the next guy. And then Drew Pyne is going to, or Tyler Buckner then has to kind of beat you out, because I think Drew Pyne, of the returners, Drew Pyne is the one that has the opportunity, in my view, to beat out Jack Cohn. It's not Brendon Clark because of the injury and the fact that he's just so far behind in some of those other areas. I think Drew Pyne is the guy that could be that guy. I've talked to people related to, the program, people that know people in the program, and he's made an impression. I was told he had as good of a grasp of the offense as anybody on the roster last year at quarterback. Well, that's saying something when you got a 3-year starter and a fifth, and it wasn't a knock on Ian Book. It was a praise of Drew Pyne.
Sure.
He said the game just comes naturally to him mentally. He picked everything up. He knew the offense. He knew he was a good decision maker. He's got to not only do that, but he's got to make plays. That's the key for Drew Pyne. Is just, being super accurate from 10 yards down is not going to win you the job. You have to make those downfield, be willing to make those downfield throws, bang that corner route when the receiver's just now getting to the top of his break. Be willing to attack some of those zones. So show the staff that your physical limitations are not limiting to your ability to produce as a quarterback. And that is going to be the key for Drew Pyne. That's the only way he's going to get people to forget the fact that he doesn't have the best arm. He's not the best athlete, because you can be all those things and be the best playmaker. And I point to Mac Jones. Mac Jones, from an arm talent standpoint and athleticism standpoint, is not in the same universe as Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and Joe Burrow and Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. But his winning and production and playmaking ability is just as good, because he's as good as anybody up here. And so I think that's how Drew Pyne has to be if he's going to have any chance, because this is the spring he's going to do it. If he doesn't do it this spring, by the time we get to the fall next spring, Tyler Buckner's going to be way past him. And so that's going to be his chance.